Hi guys, welcome back. My name is Scott, and today we're going to be working on some Rockgut Trogoths. Now these have been on my backlog for quite a while, and I'm excited to get around to finally painting them. So let's go ahead and take a look at how I've painted these models. To get this model ready for painting, I've primed it using Wraithbone spray primer from Citadel. We're going to start this model off by painting all of the rocky textured scales on his back using Stegadon Scale Green, and go ahead and paint this over the texturing that's on the arms and legs as well. With that color in place, we're now going to base the rest of the skin with Thunderhawk Blue. The only part we're not going to paint with this is the belly, which we're going to do in a different color later on. For the skin on the belly, we're going to use Rakarth Flesh. And when you get to the border, where the belly transitions into the normal skin, make sure you do a somewhat uneven line to give it a natural appearance. Now that our base colors are down, we're going to start shading, and we're going to start with the scaly back, and we're going to use Drakenhof Nightshade as the color for this. And you can go nice and heavy with this part. Just be careful not to get this on the normal blue skin, as it will darken it down quite a bit. We're going to use Agrax Earthshade to shade all of the rest of the body. This includes both the belly tan skin and the blue skin. And you don't need to go too heavy when you do this, because it is meant to serve as a guide to help us highlight the muscles in the subsequent steps. Once our shade is dried, we're going to begin dry brushing the stony scales on the back. And we're going to start with Thunderhawk Blue, and this is the heaviest of the dry brush coats we'll do. You may even want to do a couple layers and build up the color over time. Our second layer of dry brushing is going to be done using Dawnstone, and this is going to be a lighter coat of dry brushing. This is just meant to give the scales a slight gray tint to them to help convey the idea that these are meant to simulate rocks. Our final layer of dry brushing will be done using Celestra Grey, and this is meant to only hit the most raised scales on the back. Now that that's all done, we're going to take Thunderhawk Blue and we're going to layer this back over the skin, but we're focusing on all the raised surfaces, and we're trying to follow the curvature of the muscles and the different rolls of flesh on the model. Now we're going to do a second layer of highlighting, and this one's going to be done with a mixture of 1 part Fenrisian Grey to 2 parts Thunderhawk Blue. And like before, we're going to put this on the raised surfaces, but we're not going to go quite as far up to the edges as we did with the previous coat. To layer the belly, we're going to take Rakarth Flesh, and we're going to do this in very much the same manner as we did the blue in the last 2 steps. Once we've done that, we're going to take Contrast Volupus Pink, and we're going to water this down a little bit, and then we're going to put it on the model on any scars or on any of the creases on the belly, and we're going to use water to create a smooth transition between the pink flesh and the tan flesh. Now these next few steps I did simultaneously, so you might see parts that show up painted that I haven't demonstrated yet. Don't worry, those will pop up later in the video. Now to get these details started off, we're going to take Dryad Bark and paint this on any of the spots that have wooden texturing. Once that brown has dried, we're going to take Agrax Earthshade, and we're going to do a nice heavy coat of this over any of the wooden spots. Once that shade has been allowed to dry, we're going to take Sylvaneth Bark, and we're going to dry brush this all over the wooden area. Now do this in multiple thinner coats and build the color up, because you really want those edges to have this color be prominent. The next detail we're going to work on is the goblin that he's holding, and we're going to start by basing all of his skin using Orruk Flesh. Now we're going to shade the goblin using Biel-Tan Green. Now you'll notice I'm also putting a few layers of this on the wood we did in the previous step. That's because I'm going to do a kind of a moss appearance on the wood. Once the shade is dried, we're going to go back through with Orruk Flesh again, and we're going to layer this over the goblin skin the same way we did with the troll earlier on. For the moss appearance on the wood, we're going to take Formula P3 Gnarls Green. We're just going to use this as an edge highlight, and in some spots we're just going to dot it on the wood, but only in the spots where we used the green shade earlier. Moving on to the loincloth, we're going to paint it using Khorne Red, and just be careful not to get this on the skin around the cloth. To shade the cloth, we're going to use Carroburg Crimson. You don't need to go too heavy with this, you just want just enough that it will make the recesses and creases in the cloth a little bit darker. Next, we're going to highlight the cloth using Mephiston Red, and this is just an edge highlight, just trying to get the raised parts of the cloth and any of the edges. Now we're going to take Abaddon Black. We're going to paint this in two places. We're going to paint this on the Grot's cloak, and then we're going to paint this on the heads of any of the weapons that have stone heads. The idea here is that this is going to be an obsidian club head. We're going to take Naggoroth Night, and we're going to use this to highlight all of the obsidian heads that we've done on the clubs. Now it's okay to go heavy with this and to overpaint a little bit, because obsidian usually isn't all evenly colored. We're going to do a second layer of highlighting on the obsidian using Xereus Purple. Now this time we are going to be a little more controlled, and we're only picking out the edges that we think should stick out the most. Next, we're going to highlight the cloak on the grot. We're going to start by using Skavenblight Dinge, and very similar to the obsidian, it's okay if we be a little bit sloppy with this layer of highlighting. It will just make the cloak look more dirty and weathered. Now we're going to do a second layer of highlighting using Stormvermin Fur, and just like before, we're only going to pick out the edges that we think should be highlighted the most. It's time to start working on the bone parts of the model, so we're going to start with Morghast Bone, and we're going to use this to base coat any bones that are hanging off the model. And in the case of the model I'm painting, the handle of his club is also made of bone. We're also going to do the teeth in this color. We're going to shade all of the bone using Contrast Skeleton Horde. Now I personally like to shade rather heavily using this contrast paint, but you can go light if you want. While that shade is drying, we're going to go through and paint all of the straps on the model using Rhinox Hide. Next, we're going to shade the straps using Agrax Earthshade. At this point, the contrast paint we put on the bones is probably dried, so we're going to take Ushabti Bone, and we're going to use this to highlight the edges of all the bone. And on the teeth, we're going to start and draw a straight line starting at the tip of the teeth, moving down towards the base of the teeth. Now we're going to highlight the leather straps using Mournfang Brown. At this stage, we will also paint the toenails and claws of the model using the same color. Once that brown is dried, we're going to take Rakarth Flesh, and we're going to do straight lines starting from the tip of each toenail and moving up the toenail, separating further apart as they get towards the base of the toenail. We're going to paint each of the eyes using Averland Sunset, and when you do this, you just want to be very careful to not get this on the skin around the eye, so use a very fine point brush and take your time with this. For our final step, we're going to take Abaddon Black, and we're just going to put a small dot in each of the eyes. Now just make sure you get the dots facing the same direction so you don't end up with a cross-eyed troll or goblin. And with that, we finished painting our Troggoths. Now it's important to note, when you paint your own Troggoths, they're probably not going to be the same as this one, because this kit makes something like 60 different poses for the trolls. So you might have to get creative with how you do some of your own details, because I can't show them all in one video. Anyway, thank you so much for watching, have a great day, and we'll catch you in the next one.